So, right now, while you're listening to this, think about the text you sent this morning, or maybe the video you watched last night, or even that email you're waiting on right this second. Almost all of that data at some point actually had to physically travel to get to you. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It didn't go to a satellite, and it definitely did not go to some magical fluffy cloud floating up in the sky. Nope, it literally traveled through a real physical cable about the thickness of your wrist, sitting in complete absolute darkness, thousands of meters underwater on the ocean floor. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden technology that quietly runs our entire world. Okay, let's dive right in with a number that really puts all of this into perspective. 30. Right now, there are over 500 active submarine fiber optic cables crisscrossing the ocean floors all around the globe. We're talking North America to Europe, Europe to Africa, Asia to, well, everywhere in between. And here is the absolutely mind-blowing part. If you were to take every single one of those active cables right now and lay them end to end, they would be long enough to circle the Earth more than 30 times. 30 times!
So this really brings up a massive fundamental question, doesn't it? One that totally flips how we think about our digital lives. Where does the internet actually live? I mean, when we hear the word cloud, our brains immediately picture something wireless, right? Something abstract, just kind of floating above us. But the reality of the internet is almost the exact opposite. So our mission in this explainer today is to peek behind that curtain. We're going to look at how the internet physically works. Not the apps, not the software, but the heavy-duty bolts and glass physical infrastructure that makes modern society possible.
And, this perfectly shatters the biggest misconception out there right now. We constantly hear in the news about satellite internet, right? Companies beaming signals down from space. But get this, satellite internet actually makes up less than 1% of global internet traffic. Less than 1%. Meanwhile, over 99% relies completely on those physical submarine lines we were just talking about. Just statistically speaking, the very data carrying the audio of my voice to you right this second, it almost certainly passed through at least one undersea cable. Crazy, right?
Section 1. Inside and Undersea Cable.
So, how exactly does a cable the size of your wrist carry the literal weight of the modern world? Let's peel it back, layer by layer. At the very center, step 1, you have these strands of glass fiber, and they are incredibly thin, like thinner than a human hair. That right there is where the actual information lives. But here's the kicker. The data isn't sent as electricity. It's actually sent as pulses of light. We're talking trillions of flashes of light every single second, encoding everything from your group chats to 4K video streams. Then for step 2, engineers wrap a layer of copper around that delicate glass core. That's to carry electrical power to signal boosters along the way. Moving to step 3, they add heavy steel wiring. This gives it incredible strength, because these cables have to survive being yanked and dragged by deep ocean currents. And finally, step 4, they wrap the whole shebang in a heavy-duty, waterproof, armored coating just to withstand the crushing, enormous water pressure of the deep sea.
But actually, that heavy-duty armor, it's not just for water pressure. Believe it or not, these cables are specifically engineered to survive shark bites. Yeah, no joke. You heard that right. In the early days of laying these undersea cables, it happened often enough that sharks would literally bite the lines down in the deep ocean, causing some serious damage. It honestly sounds like a made-up story, but it was a heavily documented, very real engineering problem. So companies actually had to reinforce the outer layers of the cables specifically to handle the bite force of deep-sea sharks.
Section 2. Laying the Global Network.
Now, physically getting a cable across an entire ocean, that is a massive logistical nightmare and a multi-million-dollar expense. I mean, you can't exactly just drop it off the side of a rowboat. Laying cable is this exercise in extreme, careful precision, and the environment totally dictates how they handle it. So near the coastlines where the water is shallow, the risk of accidental damage is super high. You've got ship anchors, heavy fishing equipment scraping the bottom. You get the idea. Because of that, in shallow water, the cable is actually physically buried under the seabed using these specialized underwater plows. But out in the deep ocean, completely different story. Out there, the cable just rests directly on the ocean floor, sometimes at depths of over 8,000 meters. To put that into perspective, that's nearing the deepest trenches on Earth. And down there in the pitch black, pretty much nothing disturbs it.
Let's take a quick look at the life cycle of one of these cables because it's pretty wild. First off, a single cable route takes months and months to meticulously plan and lay. It requires these massive, specialized ships carrying thousands of kilometers of cable wound onto giant spools. And the cost? We're talking anywhere from tens of millions to hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the length and how deep the water is. But once that cable is finally down on the seabed, it instantly becomes a lightning-fast data highway. Information travels across the world in literal seconds via those trillions of flashes of light we talked about. And if it stays undisturbed, that massive upfront investment really pays off, giving us a reliable operational lifespan of about 20 to 25 years. Section 3. Vulnerabilities and the geopolitical stakes.
So, we've established that the entire internet basically relies on a remarkably small number of physical lines, right? Which, if you think about it, makes our modern world incredibly fragile. Because there are relatively few of these cables compared to just how much of our lives depends on them, damaging even a small fraction can cause devastating disruptions. And the threats? They're surprisingly physical. We are talking about a fishing trawler's anchor accidentally snagging a cable or a sudden earthquake drastically shifting the seabed. And these aren't just theoretical what-if risks. These are real incidents that have literally knocked out significant portions of entire countries' internet for hours or sometimes even days. But beyond the accidents or natural disasters, there's also a very real human threat here: geopolitical competition and control. And this is exactly why undersea cables are no longer just seen as simple telecom infrastructure. Today, they are increasingly defined and treated as strategic national infrastructure. They are quite literally put in the exact same critical category as a nation's power grids or its water supplies. Think about it for a second. A country's economy, its communication networks, its financial systems, even massive chunks of its defense infrastructure, it all completely runs through these underwater lines now. Because of this reality, governments around the world are quietly but intensely investing in cable protection, backup routing, and deep-sea monitoring systems. Control over where these cables land, who ultimately owns them, and who has access to the data flowing through them, it has become a huge, high-stakes point of competition between major global powers.
I actually want to pause here for a moment on this quote from our source material because it just perfectly captures the awe-inspiring engineering reality that we are exploring today. Every bit of the modern global economy is right now being converted into flashes of light, shot through glass thinner than a hair, sitting in total darkness at the bottom of the ocean. I mean, wow. It's surviving pressure that would instantly crush almost anything else. It is so massive in its scale, and yet so completely invisible in our daily routines that most people will honestly go their entire lives without ever even knowing it exists until something goes wrong.
So the next time someone casually tells you to just upload it to the cloud, well, you'll know exactly what is actually happening behind that sentence. Your data is being turned into light, shooting down a hair-thin piece of glass, and traveling along the bottom of the ocean, potentially thousands of kilometers, just to reach a server on the completely opposite side of the planet. Which leaves us with this final, kind of lingering thought. Your entire digital life literally rests at the bottom of the ocean. Given everything we've just uncovered today about shark bites, ship anchors, and intense geopolitical control, how secure is it really? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If you love pulling back the curtain on the everyday tech that quietly runs our world, and you want to keep learning in a way that actually makes sense, be sure to subscribe. We've got a lot more fascinating breakdowns of everyday engineering coming your way soon. See you in the next one.